me now, NewsNation travel editor Peter Greenberg. Peter, welcome to you. I want to play just a portion of the air traffic control call for folks at home. Let's listen.
Just give you a heads up. We've got the guy that tried to shut the engines down out of the cockpit, and he doesn't sound like he's causing any issue in the back right now. I think he's subdued. Other than that, yeah, we warn law enforcement as soon as we get on the ground and park.
Pilots are trained for every scenario. I don't know if this one was on the list. They remained pretty calm. But can you recall, Peter, any other times where a pilot in the jump seat has caused any problems in the cockpit?
You know, cockpit security is all about keeping people out. And people who are vetted once they're in, that's a new one. We haven't seen anything like this that I can remember. But let's go back to 2015 and the terrible story of the German wings flight, where the co-pilot waited for the pilot to go to the lavatory, then locked him out, and then started a slow and intentional descent into the Alps and killed everybody on board. And as a result of that terrible incident, airlines around the world changed their rules about who could get into the cockpit and who could stay out. And what that means is, from now on, and this is, of course, applied to this flight as well, anytime a cockpit member needs to leave the cockpit, another cabin crew member has to come into the cockpit, so there's never just one person in the cockpit at any one time. You had two pilots in the cockpit. It's not unusual for an off-duty pilot to sit jump seat on any airplane. They're authorized to do that. It's always with the courtesy of the pilot, but I've never seen a pilot turn anybody down. In this situation, this Embraer flight that was flying from Everett, Washington to San Francisco had to be diverted to Portland when this particular off-duty pilot attempted to hit the fire suppression handles. They're very easily accessible. They're supposed to be in the event of an emergency to be able to shut down engines in the event of a fire. Once you do that, it's a little bit tough to restart those engines, especially depending on how high you were flying. In this case, they were able to subdue him. And now the question becomes, will anybody other than a licensed flight crew on a particular airline be allowed into the cockpit during the flight?
Right. Has us wondering, will this result in some procedural changes moving forward? What do you think?
Well, it's difficult to do that because in every airline, they have a procedure for other flight attendants and other pilots, especially the pilots, to be able to sit in the jump seat if there's a capacity issue or a training issue or an FAA jump seat rider who's checking on the pilots. I don't think it's going to change policy that much. The bottom line is, in major emergencies, having three pilots in the cockpit has always been a help, not a hindrance, except perhaps in this terrible case.
Right. It seems like an anomaly, right? Flying is safe. Our pilots are screened. They're trained for this. Were you surprised, though, by the swiftness of the charges? 83 counts of attempted murder almost immediately.
Well, there's no reason to hesitate on that. You have eyewitnesses, you have evidence, and you have to charge. The question is, what was his mental state? Will he be pleading not guilty by reason of insanity? We have no idea what that's going to happen. Remember, in the case of the German wings pilot, meaning the pilot that killed everybody, he was already under the care of a psychiatrist who thought he was not fit to fly, but the airline let him do it anyway. That's a whole other issue.
Right. And appearing, by all accounts, there were no red flags with this particular pilot. Talk a little bit about the program, the federal flight deck officer, the TSA deputizing certain pilots to be trained to handle these types of situations in the cockpit.
Well, there are two things at work here. There's that licensing program, and also a lot of pilots have asked for permission to carry weapons in the cockpit, which seems to me to be ludicrous because if you fire a weapon inside a plane, it's an immediate depressurization system. You can lose control of the airplane. I don't know how much that's going to help. They have a fire axe up there, which they've used in the past to stop people from coming in. But right now, you're just going to have to vet people in a different way. And I don't know how effective that can be because anybody can have a bad day. This guy had apparently a very bad day.
He's going to have a few more bad days before all is said and done. The passengers on board were told very little. They knew that they were making an emergency landing. They describe it as pure fear. How much do pilots relay from the cockpit about a situation such as this?
Well, sometimes pilots don't have an opportunity to do that. They're too heavily tasked in trying to control the airplane. And when this happened, of course, the plane made a number of sharp turns because the pilots needed to regain control of the plane. Then they had to basically redirect the plane and reposition the plane to make the emergency landing, the diverted landing at Portland. So at this point, I don't think the pilots could be at fault for not telling passengers what was going on. The fact is they were concentrating on flying the plane.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.